Okay, our journey through phase 2 of the MCU continues as we get to Thor the Dark World, and we finally find out what happens to Loki after he and Thor are teleported back to Asgard with the Tesseract in hand. Let's see what the follow-up is. All right, like Iron Man 3, this is a very divided movie amongst the fan base. I'm going to do my best to fully flesh out the things I like and did not like and see if I can get a better view, a better understanding of it. So let's get started without wasting any time. Number one, this movie is a vast improvement over the first movie in space. While the first movie was decent, it was okay, it was standard. My big criticism was that it spent way too much time on Earth and just nothing of interest is happening on Earth. In this one, they fixed that. This film takes place mostly on Asgard, and I like it. I like seeing Asgard. I like the whole look and aesthetic of Asgard. This looks like the most coolest, interesting place to be. And the movie, to its credit, takes place mostly in Asgard, and you get to see a little bit of it. You get to see how the culture works. You get to see, Asgard actually look livable, and people actually doing things there. Uh, they don't fully explore it to the most that I would like to see, because it mostly takes place inside the palace. But for the most part, I enjoyed seeing Asgard, and I enjoyed seeing the culture and how things work. So that part was all good. Another thing I liked were the action set pieces. While the first Thor movie had some okay action scenes, this one had pretty good ones itself. Like Thor's introduction scene when he goes to Vanaheim to help out Sif and Hogan was fun to watch. Um, the scene where there's also this scene that's heavily inspired by Star Wars, where Tie fighters and X wings, and it's Thor and Loki are just bantering off one another, just having really funny dialogue exchanges. That scene was pretty cool too, and the scene where Thor and Loki team up in the Dark World was also a pretty cool scene. So, and the climax is all right. It's nothing face, and the climax is okay too. So that's a pretty cool fight scene. So in terms of action set pieces, done well. Another thing I like, Alan Taylor took over directing duties, and he did a journeyman's job. He's no Kenneth Branagh, but with the work he did, I'm not gonna bury the guy. He did a journeyman's job, and he did okay. He's mostly a TV. He mostly directed episodes of Game of Thrones. I have not seen Game of Thrones, so I don't know if this had a Game of Thrones feel to it. But but in terms of a theatrical film, I think he did an okay job. Nothing spectacular, but nothing to rage against, to rage on, I guess. So that's okay. Point being, another point: the acting in this movie is very up and down, and the way and characters' involvement to the storyline is very to overall story is just up and down as well. Uh, let's talk about Jane Foster, played by Natalie Portman. In my opinion, she is useless. She serves no purpose in this movie. The only thing that happens with her is that she finds this Infinity Stone called the Ether, and her finding the Ether somehow awakens Malekith, who is the lead villain from a played by Christopher Eccleston, from a millennia sleep or some shizen, and the Ether attaches itself to her, and that's pretty much it. The Ether just attaches itself to Jane. You could have easily taken Jane out of this movie, and the Ether could have attached itself to Darcy or Eric Selvig, and it would not have changed anything in the plot. It would have still been the same movie. So Jane Foster is useless. And this movie had two chances to make Jane interesting, and within those two chances, they didn't even attempt to do anything with it. Chance number one: the movie was subtly hinting at that Sif is starting to have this. I guess you could say twinkle in her eye for Thor, like a little love interest for Thor, and there's also a scene in the movie where she sees Thor and Jane, and she pretty much gives Jane that "bitch, who the fuck you think you are" look. And there's no follow up to that, because when they meet again, it's as if nothing ever happened, and she's defending Jane against the Dark Elves, and that whole like subtle hint of a love triangle doesn't even come up, which was a big hit, which was a big miss, and a real which was a big miss in order to make Jane interesting and relevant to the plot. And another gigantic miss, in my view, is that they didn't even attempt to even touch on the fact to even like have her interact with Odin and Frigga at all. I mean, she had some interactions, but didn't really mean much. Didn't mean much at all. Like I don't remember. I don't recall a scene where Frigga and Jane are talking about Thor and how Frigga approves of their relationship or not, and or Frigga just telling Jane that she has to be worthy of her son or anything like that. I get none of that. The only interaction she has with Odin is that Odin does not want her on Asgard. He wants her off Earth. She wants her back on Earth ASAP. But when he finds out that she has the ether within her, she's like, "Oh, she can stay." And that's pretty much it. The interaction. So Jane's interaction with the parents, nothing. So you didn't follow up on a love triangle, and you didn't even touch on a family dynamic. Why is Jane in this movie? Why is Natalie Portman here? She's doing nothing. Nothing. Not only that, she's not even that good in terms of her acting skills. She looks like she's bored and doesn't even want to be there. Which is actually true, because Natalie Portman didn't really even want to do this movie. Didn't even want to come back. So why is she here? Why? Just why is Jane here? Jane is the most boring love interest I've ever seen. She does nothing and she means nothing. I don't care about Natalie Portman's looks. Yes, she's a good-looking woman. But you're playing a character in the movie, and if your character is boring, I'm going to call you out on it. Your character is boring. Get off the movie. Make room for someone who's actually better than you. And while you're at it, take Darcy with you, because she's unfunny also. But we can keep Eric, because Eric actually has some funny moments. And we can definitely keep Lady Sif, because she's a badass, and I love Jamie Alexander. And I also love the Warriors 3, and they're completely wasted in this movie also. I love Ray Stevenson as Volstagg. He has some funny lines. And there's also this pretty funny running gag where like Thor, Sif, and Volstagg all tell Loki, "If you betray me, I'll kill you." And Thor's line to Volstagg after that's like, just as Volstagg's about to finish that line, Loki's like, "Let me guess, you'll kill me. Evidently, you have to wait in line." Hilarious. Tom Hiddleston as Loki once again steals the show. His presence alone makes this movie watchable. He's funny. He has the best lines. There's also a pretty cool scene where he and Thor are walking down this hallway, and Loki keeps like shape shifting himself and Thor, and he shape shifts into Captain America, which I thought was hilarious. And it was just fun that seeing Chris Evans, act like Loki, which I thought was hilarious to me. So yes, and also Loki has some pretty cool emotional scenes because midway through this movie, Frigga dies. She's murdered by Malekith. And, we see that Loki's in despair and he's like angry. And I just love it. And we see Thor has remorse for Loki because, their common bond is their mother. And of course, when their mother is killed, of course, they're both very upset. And Loki is just hell-bent on revenge. And he's willing to help Thor just so he can get revenge for what Malekith did to their mom, which I like and I appreciate. And I like the fact that Loki, while he's still a villain, he has a little bit of redemption. He has like a little bit of redemption going on, which I thought was great. And I liked it a lot. But let's talk about the elephant in the room now, which is the villain. Christopher Eccleston is completely wasted as Malekith. He is a boring, interchangeable villain who you could have taken out of this movie and it would not have made a lick of difference. He is completely irrelevant to the plot. He means nothing. He does nothing. He speaks this alien language, and I'm just like, you have no presence. You really got no presence, and you look stupid. You look like a Star Wars reject. And why are you even here for? So yeah, Malekith and his whole story is stupid. His whole thing is to get the ether, be all powerful, and blah, 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 world domination, whatever. I don't mind that plot line, but if your villain has no personality and has no presence, it's boring and doesn't mean a damn thing. And Malekith doesn't mean a goddamn thing. useless in this movie. It is hysterically bad, hysterically funny. So, no, we get all that, and then we get to the big ending. Okay, first off, before I jump the shark, we get to the Dark World where Thor and Loki team up, and throughout that scuffle, they Thor and Loki throw a deception at Malekith, where they pretty much stage the fact that Loki betrayed Thor when it was just a ruse to have Malekith extract the ether from Jane so that Thor and Loki can strike him down, which they evidently do. They created this whole ruse where Loki cuts off Thor's arm, but then we found out that it was just part of an elaborate plan to catch Malekith off guard, which I thought was pretty cool. But in the ongoing battle, Loki is supposedly killed, which I thought was great, and I love Chris Hemsworth's performance and reaction to it. I thought he did a really good job with it. But the movie ruins it before the climax even starts, when we pretty much see Loki transform into an Asgardian guard. So it's like, really? Why'd you have to do that for? I mean, look, if you weren't going to keep Loki dead, at least let it sink in a little more. Don't come back 2-3 scenes later and be like, oh, he's alive. No worries. But we get to the real end where we find out that Loki, Thor and Odin are having this conversation where Thor says I don't want the crown, I want to go back to Earth, and Odin pretty much grants his wish, but we find out that it was Loki impersonating Odin during that whole conversation, and I've always been like, why couldn't you? This could have been the reveal. Why did you have to go back to the Dark World to show Loki, even though you don't see Loki himself transform, but you see that green light that happens when Loki transforms to something. Why couldn't you just have this be the big reveal that Loki is still alive? Why'd you have to spoil it a couple of scenes earlier for it? I always find it to be fucking stupid, and it ruined the whole suspense to me. It's why would you do that for? And of course, the mid-credit scene pretty much is the setup for Guardians of the Galaxy, where Volstagg and Sif bring the ether to the Collector, and it's Benicio del Toro looking all Liberace-like and looking just really fucking weird. And and then we get the end credit scene where we see Loki go back to Earth, him and Jane make out, and blah 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 blah. So yeah, that's my take on Thor: The Dark World. When all said and done, it's a 6.5. I'm giving it a 6.5. Yeah, I'm giving it a 6.5. It improves on the first movie, but it doesn't really make it better than the first movie. It doesn't really make it light years better than the first movie. If anything, it fixes some improvements, but this movie also has its own problems of its own, which prevents it from being anything higher than 6.5. Because in my view, useless characters, a weak villain, and just bad scene placement takes a lot off a grade. And I'm sorry, but this movie is worth a 6.5. Now, some may say it's a little too high for this movie, because this movie does get a lot of hate, but I don't hate it. I tolerate it. I don't mind. If I watch it, I'm not going to be upset that I did. Of course, it's definitely not that memorable. It's definitely not a memorable movie, because up until I watched it, I don't even remember half the shit that happened in it. So yeah, The Dark World is a very forgettable movie, but it's not a horrible movie. It's definitely not the worst thing you'll ever see. Definitely not the worst thing you'll ever see. So yeah, this is a solid 6.5, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Anyway, my name is AJ Legend. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you again next time as we get to one of my favorite movies of Phase 2, and arguably one of my top 10 favorite comic book movies ever made. But until then, take care, guys.